The paper felt heavy in her hands, heavier than it should have been for just 3 pages of notebook paper. Maya stared at the red ink that covered almost every sentence she'd written. It looked like someone had bled all over her words. At the top, in capital letters that seemed to scream at her, Mr. Patterson had written, "See me after class, this is unacceptable." She felt her stomach drop. That familiar feeling of wanting to disappear, to melt into her chair and become invisible. Around her, other students were chattering about their grades, some happy, some disappointed. But nobody's paper looked like hers. Nobody else had that much red. Maya was 16. She sat in the back corner of her English class at Lincoln High, the same seat she'd claimed on the first day of sophomore year. Back then, she'd thought maybe this year would be different. Maybe this year the words would finally make sense. Maybe this year she wouldn't feel so stupid. She'd spent hours on this essay. Her mom had come home from her evening shift at the hospital around midnight and found Maya still at the kitchen table, surrounded by crumpled papers. "Mija, you need sleep," her mom had said, touching her shoulder gently before heading to bed. But Maya had kept working, rewriting sentences over and over, trying to make them sound right. It still wasn't enough. The bell rang. Students shuffled out, their backpacks scraping against desks. Maya gathered her things slowly, hoping Mr. Patterson would forget about her. But he stood by his desk, waiting, arms crossed over his chest. "Maya, we need to talk about your work." She walked to his desk, each step feeling like walking through mud. She kept her eyes down, focusing on the scuffed floor tiles. "This is your 3rd essay this semester, and frankly, I'm concerned. The grammar is all over the place. Your sentences don't connect. It's like you're not even trying." He sighed, and Maya felt smaller with each word. "I know you sit in the back and you're quiet, but you can't just coast through my class. You need to put in effort." "I did try," she said quietly. Well, whatever you're doing isn't working. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. If this continues, you're looking at a D or possibly failing. You need to consider whether you're really college material." College material. Those words hit her like a slap. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and hurried out of the classroom. In the hallway, she pressed herself against the lockers, trying to breathe normally. Trying not to cry, this wasn't new. Words like these had followed Maya through school like shadows. In 3rd grade, her teacher had called her parents in for a meeting. Maya had sat in a chair that was too big for her, swinging her legs while the adults talked about her like she wasn't there. She's not keeping up with the other students. She reverses letters, skips words when reading aloud. I think she might need special help. The way her teacher had said special made it sound like something shameful. Her parents didn't fully understand. They'd come to America from Mexico when Maya was 3, and they'd worked so hard to give her opportunities they never had. Her father worked construction, leaving before dawn and coming home after dark. Her mother worked 2 jobs, one at the hospital laundry and another cleaning offices at night. They believed in education the way some people believe in miracles. She just needs to work harder, her father had said. We didn't come here for her to make excuses. So Maya worked harder. But the letters still jumped around on the page. The words still got tangled in her brain somewhere between seeing them and understanding them. By middle school, she'd learned to hide it. She memorized things instead of reading them. She copied from friends. She found ways to survive, but high school was different. The work was harder. The teachers noticed more. And there was nowhere left to hide. That afternoon, she went to see her guidance counselor, Mr. Thompson. It was a mandatory meeting, part of planning for junior year. His office smelled like coffee and old paper. "So Maya, let's talk about your future plans. College, career, that sort of thing." He pulled up her transcript on his computer and she watched his expression change. The smile became more forced, more careful. "Your grades are, well, they're not terrible, but they're not good either. Mostly C's, a few D's. Your test scores are below average." He leaned back in his chair. "Have you thought about vocational training? There are some excellent programs. Cosmetology, maybe, or medical assistant training. Not everyone is meant for a 4-year college, and that's perfectly okay." There it was again, that gentle, pitying tone that said, "Lower your expectations." "I want to go to college," Maya said, but her voice came out small and uncertain. "Well, sure, and that's admirable, but we have to be realistic. Community college might be a better fit, or maybe taking some time after graduation to work, figure things out." He smiled like he was doing her a favor. Some people are book smart, and some people are more hands-on. There's no shame in that. Maya left his office feeling hollow. She walked through the halls watching other students laugh with their friends, carry textbooks confidently, belong in a way she never had. They were the smart ones, the college material ones. She was just something else, something less. At home that evening, things got worse. Her older brother Carlos was visiting from college. He was the golden child, the one who'd gotten a full scholarship, the one their parents bragged about to relatives. He sat at the kitchen table helping their younger sister with her homework, while Maya tried to disappear into the couch with her history textbook. "Yo, Maya, weren't you supposed to read this chapter last week?" Carlos called out, spotting the book. "We're having a test on this tomorrow, dummy. How are you not done yet?" "I'm reading it now," she mumbled. "Reading it? Or staring at it?" "There's a difference," and he laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. "Seriously, how are you struggling with this? This is basic stuff." A middle schooler could understand this. Their mother came in from the kitchen wiping her hands on a towel. She'd only been home an hour before she had to leave for her night job. "Carlos, be nice to your sister." "I am being nice. I'm trying to help." "But come on, Mama, she's not even trying. She's just lazy." That word, lazy. Maya had heard it so many times it had started to feel true. Teachers said it. Her counselor implied it. Her brother said it. Maybe they were all right. "I'm not lazy," she said, but the words came out weak. "Then prove it. Stop making excuses and just do the work like everyone else." Carlos shook his head and turned back to helping their sister, who was younger than Maya, but already getting better grades. Maya went to her room and closed the door. She sat on her bed, that history textbook open in front of her and the words blurred together, not from tears, though those were coming too. The words just wouldn't stay still. They jumped and swam and refused to make sense no matter how hard she stared at them. She thought about Mr. Patterson's red ink, Mr. Thompson's gentle suggestion to aim lower, Carlos calling her lazy, all those words from all those people piling up like stones in her chest. Maybe they were right. Maybe she just wasn't smart enough. Maybe some people were born knowing how to make sense of letters and sentences and ideas, and she just wasn't one of them. Maybe she should stop trying to be something she wasn't. She closed the textbook and lay back on her bed staring at the ceiling. There was a water stain in the corner that looked like a cloud or maybe a bird. She'd stared at it so many nights when the words defeated her, when the shame felt too heavy to carry. Tomorrow there would be another class, another assignment, another chance to fail, another chance for someone to tell her in one way or another that she wasn't enough. She didn't know yet that this feeling, this terrible weight of all those words, was about to get worse before it got better. She didn't know that rock bottom was still ahead of her, and she definitely didn't know that sometimes the words that try to break you end up being the ones that force you to find out what you're really made of. For now, she just lay there in the quiet of her small room, feeling the weight of everyone's disappointment, including her own. The homework sat unfinished. The history test waited for tomorrow, and Maya wished, not for the first time, that she could be someone else, someone who the words came easy to, someone who fit. Outside her window, the sun was setting, painting the sky in colors she could see and understand perfectly. But nobody gave grades for watching sunsets. Nobody called you smart for noticing how the light changed from gold to pink to purple. Those things didn't matter in the world of essays and tests and college applications. She turned away from the window and pulled her blanket over her head, blocking out even that small beauty. Tomorrow would come whether she was ready or not. And she already knew she wouldn't be. The worst part about failing wasn't the grades. It was the invisibility that came with it. Maya learned to perfect the art of disappearing. She'd slip into classrooms right as the bell rang, sit in the back, keep her head down. When teachers asked questions, she'd suddenly become very interested in her notebook, writing nothing but hoping she looked busy. When they split into groups, she'd join whichever one had an extra spot and contribute as little as possible. By November of her junior year, she'd become a ghost in her own life. Lunch was the hardest part of the day. The cafeteria was loud, crowded, full of people who belonged somewhere. The athletes sat together, loud and confident. The smart kids gathered near the windows, studying or arguing about movies. The popular crowd took up the center tables like royalty. And then there was everyone else, scattered around in smaller groups, but still somewhere. Maya didn't fit anywhere. She'd tried, in the beginning, freshman year. She'd sat with some girls from her math class, but they talked about homework and tests and college visits, and Maya had nothing to add. She'd just smile and nod, feeling more alone in a group than she ever did by herself. So she started spending lunch periods in the library. The library was quiet. Not the uncomfortable silence of a classroom where you might get called on, but a peaceful kind of quiet. Most kids avoided it, which made it perfect. Maya would grab a random book from the shelves, find a corner desk in the computer section, and just exist for 40 minutes. She didn't really read the books. The words still did their usual dance across the page, refusing to cooperate. But holding a book made her look like she had a purpose, like she was doing something intentional instead of hiding. Mrs. Reyes, the librarian, was new that year. She was younger than most of the teachers, maybe in her 30s, with glasses that hung on a chain around her neck and a collection of colorful scarves. She'd replaced old Mr. Hendricks, who'd retired after 100 years or something. For the first few weeks, Mrs. Reyes had left Maya alone. Just a smile and a nod when Maya came in. But Maya could feel her watching sometimes, not in a creepy way, just noticing. It made Maya nervous. She didn't want to be noticed. One day in late November, Maya was staring at her laptop screen, trying to make sense of a research assignment for history class. She was supposed to write about the causes of World War I. She'd found a few websites, copied some sentences into a document, but it all felt like gibberish. The words were there, but they weren't connecting to anything in her brain. She'd been staring at the same paragraph for 15 minutes when Mrs. Reyes appeared beside her desk. "That's a tough topic," she said gently. World War I had so many moving parts. Maya's shoulders tensed. "Yeah. Can I see what you're working on?" Maya wanted to close her laptop and run, but that would be weird. She angled the screen slightly toward Mrs. Reyes, who leaned in to look. "So you've got information about alliances and about the assassination and the economic factors." Mrs. Reyes pointed at different paragraphs. "But it's hard to see how it all fits together, right? Like, how did all these separate things lead to a war?" "Yeah," Maya admitted. That was exactly the problem. Each piece of information sat alone in her head. She couldn't see the connections. Mrs. Reyes pulled up a chair. "Have you ever tried mapping it out visually? Like, instead of writing sentences, you draw how the pieces connect?" Maya frowned. "What do you mean?" "Hold on." Mrs. Reyes went to her desk and came back with a piece of paper and some colored markers. She drew a circle in the middle and wrote WW1 inside it. Then she drew lines coming out from it like sun rays. "Okay, so what were the main causes?" The assassination and the alliances." "Perfect." Mrs. Reyes wrote those on different lines. "Now what caused the alliances to matter?" Slowly, Maya started adding more information. Mrs. Reyes would ask a question, and Maya would add another circle, another line. And something strange started happening. Maya could see it. Not the words, but the shape of the answer. How one thing led to another. How it all connected. "There you go," Mrs. Reyes said after 10 minutes. "Now you can see the whole picture, right? And writing about it becomes easier because you understand the structure." Maya stared at the paper. It made sense. For the first time in forever, something about school made actual sense. "There are programs that can do this on the computer," Mrs. Reyes added. "Mind mapping software design programs. Have you ever played around with anything like that?" Maya shook her head. "Want to see?" Before Maya could answer, Mrs. Reyes had pulled up a free online design tool. She showed Maya how to create shapes, add text, draw connections. It was simple but somehow beautiful. Maya felt her fingers itching to try it. "Here, you take over." Mrs. Reyes stood up. "I've got to help someone at the front desk, but you can play with this. If you save it to your school account, you can work on it any time." For the rest of lunch and through her free period after that, Maya stayed glued to that computer. She recreated her World War I map, but this time she made it better. She added colors for different types of causes. She made the text different sizes to show what was more important. She found icons online to represent different countries. When she finally looked up, the library was empty except for Mrs. Reyes' shelving books. "I should go," Maya said, suddenly embarrassed. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." "Did you finish it?" Mrs. Reyes came over to look at the screen. Her eyes widened. "Maya, this is incredible. It's just, I don't know. It's probably stupid. Are you kidding? This is the clearest explanation of the causes of World War I I've ever seen. And I was a history major in college." Mrs. Reyes pulled up a chair again. How long have you been doing graphic design? I haven't. I don't know. Well, you're a natural. This is really sophisticated work. Maya felt something warm in her chest, something she hadn't felt in so long she'd almost forgotten what it was like. Pride, maybe? Or hope. She saved the file and went to her history class. Mr. Washington was handing back the previous week's homework. More red marks for Maya, but she didn't care as much this time. She had something different to turn in for the next assignment. She spent the next week working on her project every chance she got. Lunch period, study hall. Late at night in her room after her mom left for her shift. She added more details, more connections. She made it interactive so you could click on different parts and see more information. She taught herself basic animation to show how the war spread across Europe. It wasn't writing. There were some words, but not many. Mostly it was visual. Images and colors and shapes that told the story in a way that made sense to her brain. When she submitted it, Mr. Washington looked confused. This isn't what I assigned, he said. I know, but it covers all the same information, just in a different way. He clicked through it on his computer, his expression getting more skeptical with each slide. Maya, the assignment was a 3-page essay. I don't even know what this is. It's a visual presentation about the causes of, I can see what it's about. But you didn't follow the instructions. You were supposed to write an analytical essay using proper thesis statements and supporting paragraphs. This is just graphics. Maya felt that familiar sinking feeling, but it explains everything. All the information is there. That's not the point. The point is learning to write academically. This is a shortcut. You can't just avoid writing because it's hard. He closed his laptop. I'm giving you a D. You can rewrite it as an actual essay for partial credit, but this doesn't meet the requirements. Maya took her laptop back and walked to her desk. Around her, other students were getting their grades, most of them B's or C's. Normal grades for normal assignments that they'd done the normal way. She'd spent hours on her project, more time than she'd ever spent on any essay, and it was worth a D. Worth less than if she'd just copied some paragraphs from Wikipedia like half the class probably did. At lunch, she went back to the library. She must have looked upset because Mrs. Reyes came over immediately. What happened? Maya explained about the grade, trying not to cry. I shouldn't have done it different. I should have just done what everyone else did. Did you understand the material? Yeah, I really understood it. Making that project, I had to think about how everything connected. I learned it better than I've ever learned anything. Then it worked. Mrs. Reyes sat down across from her. Listen, Maya. The grade doesn't reflect what you accomplished. You took complex historical information and made it accessible and engaging. That's a legitimate skill, an important one, but it doesn't matter if teachers won't accept it. Some teachers won't, but that doesn't mean you should stop doing what works for your brain. Mrs. Reyes pulled out her phone and showed Maya something. Look at this. It was a poster for a regional digital media competition for high school students. The deadline was in January. You should enter this, Mrs. Reyes said. I can't. Why not? Because I'm not good at stuff like that. I get bad grades. I'm not the kind of person who wins competitions. Mrs. Reyes looked at her for a long moment. You know what I see when I look at your work? I see someone who thinks differently. Not worse, differently. And that's valuable. Mr. Washington doesn't think it's valuable. Mr. Washington is one teacher. He's good at what he does, but he's teaching you to think. Maya almost backed out 3 times before the competition deadline. The first time was 2 days after she registered. She was lying in bed, scrolling through the other entries that had already been submitted. The competition website had a gallery, and every project she clicked on looked professional, beautiful, like the people who made them actually knew what they were doing. There was a video about ocean pollution that looked like it could be on Netflix, an interactive website about music history with animations that flowed perfectly, a digital magazine about skateboarding culture that had actual interviews and professional photos. And what did Maya have? Nothing yet. Just an idea that felt smaller and stupider every time she looked at what everyone else was creating. She opened her email to write to Mrs. Reyes to say she'd changed her mind. But her finger hovered over the keyboard and wouldn't move. She closed her laptop instead and tried to sleep. The second time was a week later. She'd started working on her project finally. The topic she'd chosen was climate change. but not the big, overwhelming version that made everyone feel hopeless. She wanted to show it in a way that made sense. That showed how small choices connected to big impacts. But after 3 hours of work, it looked like a mess. The colors were wrong. The information wasn't flowing right. It felt childish and amateur. She saved the file and didn't open it again for 4 days. Mrs. Reyes found her in the library during lunch, sitting at her usual computer but not working on anything. Just staring at the screen. "How's the project going?" Mrs. Reyes asked, pulling up a chair. "I don't think I'm going to finish it." "Why not?" Maya shrugged. "It's not good enough. Everyone else's stuff is so much better. Can I see what you have so far?" Maya reluctantly opened the file. Mrs. Reyes leaned in, studying the screen. Maya waited for her to confirm what she already knew, that it wasn't good, that she should give up. "This is really interesting," Mrs. Reyes said instead. "I like how you're connecting personal actions to global impact. That's a smart angle, but it looks bad. It's not polished like the other entries. Because it's not finished yet. Maya, nobody's first draft looks polished. You're comparing your rough work to their final products." Mrs. Reyes pointed at the screen. "But the core idea here? It's solid. You just need to keep developing it." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do. You figured out that World War I project by yourself. You taught yourself the software. You can figure this out too." Mrs. Reyes stood up. "But you have to actually work on it. Not just think about quitting." After she walked away, Maya sat there for a few minutes. Then she opened a tutorial video on YouTube about color theory. Then another one about layout design. Then another about data visualization. She started working again. The third time she almost quit was the night before the deadline. It was 11 p.m. Her mom had already left for her night shift. The house was quiet except for the hum of her laptop and the distant sound of her dad's TV in the other room. Maya's project was due by midnight. It was done, technically. She'd worked on it almost every day for 6 weeks. She'd learned so much. Her brain felt stuffed full of new information, color wheels and font pairings, and how to make information clear instead of cluttered. But sitting there looking at the final version, all she could see were the flaws. The animation in Section 3 was a little jerky. The font she'd chosen for the headers might be too plain. The whole thing probably wasn't as sophisticated as it should be. She thought about just closing her laptop and going to bed. Not submitting it. Then she wouldn't have to face the rejection, the confirmation that she wasn't good enough. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Reyes. "Deadline's in an hour. Don't chicken out." Hit submit, Maya smiled despite herself. She took a deep breath, clicked the submit button, and watched the loading bar fill up. When it finished, a message appeared. "Your entry has been received. Thank you for participating." That was it. It was done. Out of her hands now. She felt relieved and terrified at the same time. The competition results were supposed to be announced in March, but they came early, in late February. Maya was in English class when her phone vibrated in her pocket. She ignored it, figuring it was her mom or something, but it vibrated again, and again. When class ended, she checked her phone in the hallway. 3 emails. 1 from the competition organizers, 2 from Mrs. Reyes, each one just a string of exclamation points. Her hands shook as she opened the first email. "Dear Maya Rodriguez, congratulations. We are pleased to inform you that your entry, Small Changes, Big Impact, a visual guide to climate action, has been selected as the second-place winner in the Regional High School Digital Media Competition." She read it twice, then 3 times. Second place. Out of how many entries? She scrolled down. 203 entries from schools across 5 counties. She'd placed second out of 203. The email kept going. There would be an award ceremony next week. She'd receive a certificate, a trophy, and a $200 prize. Her project would be featured on the competition website and in a showcase at the Regional Arts Center. Maya just stood there in the hallway, students flowing around her like water around a rock. Staring at her phone screen, someone bumped into her. "Watch it," they muttered, but Maya barely heard them. She'd won something. Actually won. Not a participation trophy or a good effort sticker. A real award for being good at something. She found Mrs. Reyes in the library, and before she could say anything, Mrs. Reyes grabbed her in a hug. "I knew it. I knew you could do it." "I can't believe it," Maya said, and her voice came out weird, shaky. "I really can't believe it. Believe it." You earned this. Mrs. Reyes pulled back, her eyes bright. The judges wrote comments. Did you read them? Maya shook her head. She'd been too shocked by the results to scroll down that far. They pulled up the email on the library computer and read through the judges' feedback together. Innovative approach to a complex topic. Clear information hierarchy. Excellent use of color to guide the viewer's eye. Professionally polished work. This entry stood out for its ability to make data accessible and engaging. Professionally polished. They'd called her work professionally polished. You need to tell your teachers, Mrs. Reyes said, and your parents. This is a big deal, Maya. But when Maya went to her classes that afternoon, telling people felt weird. In math, she mentioned it to the girl who sat next to her, and the girl just said, "Oh, cool," and went back to her phone. In science, her teacher congratulated her but seemed confused about what exactly she'd won. A computer thing? He asked. The only teacher who really understood was Ms. Peterson, the art teacher. Maya didn't even have her class, but Mrs. Reyes had told her, and Ms. Peterson tracked Maya down in the hallway. I heard about your competition win. That's fantastic. Can I see the project? Maya showed her on her phone, and Ms. Peterson's eyes got wide. Maya, this is really impressive work. Have you thought about studying design in college? College. That word that had always felt like it belonged to other people. I don't know. I'm not really college material. Ms. Peterson looked at her sharply. Who told you that? Just people. My counselor said I should maybe think about other options. Well, your counselor is wrong. With work like this, you could get into some excellent design programs. Ms. Peterson pulled out her phone. I'm going to send you some links. Schools with strong visual communications programs. Some of them have great financial aid, too. That night at dinner, Maya told her parents. Her dad was tired from work, eating quickly so he could go to bed early. Her mom was between shifts, heating up leftovers. Carlos was there, too, visiting for the weekend. I won second place in a competition, Maya said. For a digital project I made. Her mom smiled. That's wonderful, Mija. What kind of project? It's about climate change. But like visual? With graphics and animations and stuff. Like a video? Her dad asked. Sort of. It's interactive. People can click on different parts and learn about how their choices affect the environment. Carlos looked up from his phone. You made that? Like yourself? Yeah, huh. He went back to his phone. That's pretty cool, I guess. Pretty cool. Coming from Carlos, that was basically a compliment. Her mom hugged her. I'm proud of you. This is good, yes? This competition? It's a big one. Schools from all over the region entered. Then you should be proud too. You worked hard. It wasn't a huge celebration. No cake or party or anything like that. But her mom's hug felt real, and her dad nodded with what might have been approval, and it was something. The award ceremony was the following Saturday. Maya borrowed a dress from her cousin because she didn't own anything nice enough. Mrs. Reyes drove her to the community arts center where the ceremony was being held. Walking in, Maya felt completely out of place. The other students looked confident, most of them with their parents, some with whole groups of family members. They looked like they belonged at award ceremonies, like they won things all the time. Maya clutched her certificate number and tried not to run back to the car. The ceremony started with the third-place winners, then second place, then first. When they called Maya's name, she walked up to the stage on shaky legs. The coordinator, a woman in a sharp suit, handed her a crystal trophy that caught the light and made little rainbows. Maya's project demonstrated exceptional visual communication skills, the WOM. Maya spent the rest of junior year in a strange in-between space. Half of her was still the same girl who sat in the back of class, who struggled through reading assignments, who felt small when teachers handed back papers with red marks. But the other half was this new person who'd won a competition, who had a trophy on her desk, who people sometimes recognized in the hallway. Hey, you're the girl who won that design thing, right? A sophomore asked her one day at lunch. Maya had nodded, still not used to being noticed for something good, but the grades didn't magically get better. English class was still hard. History essays still took her 3 times longer than everyone else. Her GPA was still hovering around a 2.5, which her counselor reminded her was not competitive for most 4-year universities. The difference was that now Maya had something else, a business card tucked in her phone case, an email sitting in her drafts folder that she'd written and deleted a dozen times. Finally, in late April, she hit send. Dear Mr. Chen, you gave me your business card at the design competition in March. You mentioned a possible summer internship. I'm not sure if the offer still stands, but I wanted to reach out. Thank you for your time. Maya Rodriguez. He responded within 2 hours. Maya, of course I remember you. The offer definitely still stands. Can you come by the office next week to chat? Bring your portfolio if you have one. Best David Chen, portfolio. Maya didn't have a portfolio. She had one competition project and a failed history assignment, but she spent the next week putting together every visual thing she'd ever made. The World War I project, the climate change competition entry, a few book covers she'd designed for fun, some posters for imaginary events. It wasn't much, but it was something. Chen's office was in a converted warehouse downtown, the kind of place with exposed brick and big windows. Maya took 2 buses to get there, wearing the same dress she'd worn to the awards ceremony because it was the only professional-looking thing she owned. The agency was small, maybe 10 people working at desks scattered around an open space. Everyone looked young and creative with cool haircuts and vintage band t-shirts. Maya felt completely out of place. Chen met her at the door. He was in his 30s wearing jeans and a button-up shirt, more casual than he'd been at the ceremony. Maya, good to see you. Come on, let's talk in the conference room. They sat at a long table and Maya showed him her portfolio on her laptop. He asked questions about each project. Not judgy questions like teachers asked, but real questions. Why did you choose this color scheme? What were you trying to make the viewer feel here? How did you solve this layout problem? And Maya found she could answer. When she talked about her work, the words came easier. She could explain what she was thinking, what she was trying to communicate. This is solid work, Chen said finally, especially for someone who's self-taught. You've got a good eye for composition and a natural sense of how to guide attention. Thank you. The internship would be 3 days a week over the summer. Mostly you'd be helping our designers with basic tasks, learning the software, maybe working on some small projects. We can't pay much minimum wage, but you'd get real experience. Does that interest you? Did it interest her? This felt like a door opening to a place Maya had never imagined she could go. Yes, definitely yes. They shook hands, and Maya left feeling like she was floating. On the bus ride home, she couldn't stop smiling. A real job, at a real design agency. But first she had to finish junior year, and in May something happened that changed everything. Mrs. Reyes called her into the library one afternoon. Sitting with her was a woman Maya didn't recognize, youngish, with kind eyes and a notebook. Maya, this is Dr. Patel. She's an educational psychologist. Mrs. Reyes gestured for Maya to sit. I asked her to come talk to you because I think there might be something going on that we haven't addressed. Maya's stomach tightened. Am I in trouble? No, nothing like that, Dr. Patel smiled. Mrs. Reyes told me about your work, and also about your struggles in traditional academic settings. I'd like to do some testing, if you're open to it, just to get a full picture of how your brain processes information. Testing for what? Learning differences. Things like dyslexia, ADHD, processing disorders. A lot of very intelligent people have brains that work differently, and when we understand how, we can find better strategies. Maya had heard the word dyslexia before. It was what slow kids had. Kids who couldn't read. I can read, she said defensively. I'm sure you can. But Mrs. Reyes mentioned you often avoid reading, that it takes you much longer than your peers. That's worth looking into. The testing took 3 days, spread out over 2 weeks. Maya sat in a quiet office, answering questions, doing puzzles, reading passages, looking at patterns. Some parts were easy. The visual stuff, the spatial reasoning, the puzzles where she had to rotate shapes in her mind. She flew through those. The reading comprehension was torture. The timed writing tasks made her want to cry. When the results came back, Dr. Patel sat down with Maya and her parents. Carlos was there too, home for the summer, trying to act supportive but mostly looking at his phone. Maya, you have dyslexia, Dr. Patel said simply. It's a language-based learning disability that affects how your brain processes written words. It's not about intelligence at all. In fact, your IQ scores are well above average. Above average. Maya stared at her. That can't be right. It is right. You scored in the gifted range for visual spatial reasoning, your ability to understand complex systems, to see patterns, to process visual information is exceptional, in the 95th percentile. But my grades, your grades reflect a system that's measuring you on skills your brain isn't naturally wired for. But that doesn't mean you're not intelligent. It means you're intelligent in ways that traditional education doesn't always recognize or value. Her mom reached over and squeezed her hand. Mija, this is good news. Now we know. Many successful people have dyslexia, Dr. Patel continued. Artists, architects, engineers, designers. Their brains work spatially instead of linguistically, and in many fields that's actually an advantage. Maya felt something cracking open inside her chest. All these years she'd thought she was stupid, lazy, not trying hard enough. But her brain just worked differently. There are strategies we can teach you, Dr. Patel said. Accommodations for school. You can get extra time on tests. Use audiobooks, have access to text-to-speech software. And now that you know, you can stop fighting against your brain and start working with it. That night, Maya Googled famous people with dyslexia. The list was longer than she'd expected. Steven Spielberg, Pablo Picasso, Charles Schwab, Octavia Spencer. People who'd built entire careers, won awards, changed their fields. People whose brains worked like hers. The summer internship started in June. Maya took the bus downtown 3 days a week, arriving at 9 and leaving at 5. At first, she mostly watched. She sat with different designers, observing how they worked, learning the professional software, understanding the workflow. But Chen started giving her small tasks. Can you create 3 color palette options for this client? Can you find stock photos that match this mood? Can you redesign this layout? And Maya discovered something amazing. She was good at this. Not just okay, but actually good. The other designers started asking for her opinion. Maya, which of these fonts feels more trustworthy? Maya, does this layout feel balanced to you? They valued what she saw, what her brain naturally understood about visual communication. One afternoon, she was working on a data visualization project for a healthcare client. They needed to explain complex statistics about patient outcomes in a way that hospital administrators could quickly understand. Maya spent hours arranging the information, trying different approaches using color and shape to tell the story. Chen stopped by her desk and looked at her screen. He didn't say anything for a long moment. This is really good, Maya, better than good. You've made this data completely clear without dumbing it down. That's a hard balance to strike. Thanks. No, I mean it. This is professional level work. How old are you again? 17. I'll be a senior in the fall. He shook his head. You've got a real gift for this. Are you planning to study design in college? There was that word again. College. But this time Maya didn't automatically discount it. Maybe. I don't know if I can get in anywhere. My grades aren't great. Have you looked at portfolio-based programs? A lot of design schools care more about your work than your GPA. And with your competition win and this internship, you'd have a strong application. That night, Maya started researching. Art schools, design programs, visual communications majors. Chen was right. Many of them emphasized portfolios over test scores. They wanted to see what you could create, not just how well you could memorize information for exams. She found programs that looked perfect, schools where classes were taught in studios, where learning was hands-on and visual, where the thing her brain was actually good at was the thing they valued most. For the first time ever, college felt possible. Not the same kind of college her brother went to, with lecture halls and term papers and multiple choice tests, but a different kind, one that might actually fit her. Mrs. Reyes helped her with applications in August before senior year started. They worked on her personal statement together, and for once Maya had something. 3.5 years later, Maya stood backstage at the Rhode Island Convention Center, her hands sweating as she gripped her note cards. In 20 minutes, she'd walk out onto that stage as the student speaker at her college graduation. In front of 2,000 people, the note cards were barely readable. She'd written them by hand, and even now, her dyslexia made some of the words swim on the page, but she'd practiced the speech so many times she almost had it memorized. Almost. You're going to be great, whispered her roommate Tessa, squeezing her shoulder. Tessa was graduating too, heading off to a design job in Seattle. They'd been roommates since freshman year, had pulled countless all-nighters together in the studio, had become the kind of friends who understood each other without many words. Maya peeked through the curtain. The auditorium was filling up. Somewhere out there were her parents, who'd both taken the day off work for the first time she could remember. Her dad had driven them up in their old Honda, 6 hours from home. Her mom had cried when they'd arrived yesterday. seeing the campus, seeing Maya's senior thesis exhibition, finally understanding what their daughter had been doing these past 4 years. Carlos was out there too, with his wife and their baby daughter. He'd changed since Maya had left for college, gotten softer somehow. Last night at dinner, he'd pulled her aside and apologized. "I was a jerk to you growing up. I didn't understand. I'm sorry." It was the first time he'd ever said those words to her. And Mrs. Reyes. Of course, Mrs. Reyes was there, sitting in the third row, probably already crying. She'd driven up that morning, insisted she wouldn't miss this for the world. The librarian who'd seen something in Maya when Maya couldn't see it in herself. The dean of the design school walked over. "Maya, 5 minutes. How are you feeling?" Terrified, she laughed. "Good, that means you care. Just speak from the heart. That's all anyone wants to hear." Maya looked down at her note cards again. She'd rewritten this speech a dozen times. The first version had been angry, listing all the people who doubted her, all the times she'd been told she wasn't good enough. But that wasn't the story she wanted to tell anymore. The second version had been too grateful, too much about thanking everyone. Sweet but boring. This version, the one she'd finally settled on, was the truth. The complicated, messy, real truth about what it meant to have a brain that worked differently. 2 minutes, someone called. Maya handed her note cards to Tessa. "I'm not going to use these." "Are you sure?" "Yeah, if I forget something, I forget it. But I need to just talk, like a real person." The dean was being introduced. Then she was introducing Maya, whose thesis project has already attracted attention from educational technology companies across the country. Someone who embodies the spirit of innovation and perseverance. And then Maya was walking onto the stage, the lights bright in her eyes, the audience a sea of faces. She reached the podium and adjusted the microphone. Her hands were shaking, but she gripped the sides of the podium and took a breath. "Hi, everyone. I'm Maya Rodriguez, and I almost didn't make it here." The audience was quiet, listening. "When I was 16 years old, a teacher told me I wasn't college material. A guidance counselor suggested I consider vocational training instead of a 4-year degree. My own brother called me stupid, and honestly, I believed them. Because when you struggle the way I did, when words on a page won't stay still, when everyone else seems to understand things that you just can't grasp, it's easy to think maybe they're right. Maybe you're just not smart enough." She could see her parents in the crowd now, her mom dabbing at her eyes. "I spent years thinking I was broken, that my brain was defective, that I was lazy or unmotivated or just not trying hard enough. And the worst part? Nobody told me any different. The system kept measuring me with the same ruler, and I kept coming up short." Maya paused, looking out at all those faces. Graduate students and their families, faculty members, people who'd all made it through their own journeys to get here. But then something happened. Someone saw me struggling, and instead of telling me to try harder at the thing I was bad at, she asked if I'd ever tried doing it differently. Mrs. Reyes, my high school librarian, introduced me to visual thinking, and suddenly, for the first time in my life, something made sense. She found Mrs. Reyes in the crowd and smiled at her. "I got diagnosed with dyslexia when I was 17, and you know what else I found out? My brain, the one I'd spent years thinking was broken, scored in the gifted range for visual spatial reasoning. The thing I thought was my weakness was actually hiding my greatest strength." A few people in the audience nodded. Others leaned forward, engaged. Design school changed my life, but not in the way you might think. It wasn't just about learning software or techniques or color theory. It was about being in a place where my brain's natural way of working was valued, where thinking in images instead of words wasn't a deficit, where seeing patterns and connections and solutions visually was considered a skill. Maya felt herself relaxing into the speech now, the words coming more naturally. "My thesis project is called Reading Without Walls. It's an app that helps students with dyslexia and other reading disabilities interact with text in new ways. It uses color coding, spatial layouts, interactive graphics, and audio features to make reading accessible. Not easier, but accessible. There's a difference." She pulled out her phone and held it up. "This app wouldn't exist if I'd believed the people who told me to aim lower. If I'd accepted that I wasn't college material. If I'd stopped trying to find my own path." Setting her phone down, Maya looked directly at the camera recording the ceremony, knowing that maybe somewhere, some kid struggling in school might see this later. "Here's what I want you to know. If you learn differently, If traditional education feels like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, if you've been told you're not smart enough, not good enough, not college material, those people are wrong. They're not bad people. They're just measuring you with the wrong tools. Her voice got stronger. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that believing in yourself is enough, because sometimes it's not. Sometimes you need someone to believe in you first. You need a Mrs. Reyes who sees beyond your grades. You need a system that makes room for different kinds of intelligence. You need access to testing and accommodations and support. She paused, but I am going to tell you this. Your brain is not broken. Different is not less. And the things you struggle with don't define what you're capable of. Maya thought about that 16-year-old girl sitting in the back of class, making herself invisible, believing she was stupid. She wished she could go back and tell her what was coming, that the struggle had purpose, that the pain would lead somewhere. In 2 weeks, I start a job at an educational technology company in Boston. I'll be working on products that help students with learning differences, creating tools that make education more accessible, designing solutions for kids who learn like I do. She smiled. I'm also consulting with 3 school districts to train teachers on visual learning strategies. And I've been accepted into a master's program in inclusive design with a full scholarship. There was applause, but Maya held up her hand. I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm telling you because 5 years ago, I had a 2.5 GPA and a guidance counselor who suggested cosmetology school. Not because cosmetology is a bad career, but because he didn't think I was capable of more. And if I'd listened to him, I wouldn't be standing here. Maya looked down at the podium, gathering her thoughts for the conclusion. Someone once told me my words tried to break me. But here's what I learned. Words only have the power you give them. When people told me I wasn't smart, I gave those words power by believing them. But when someone told me I was talented, when test results showed me I was gifted in ways I'd never imagined, I had to choose whether to believe those words too. She looked back up at the audience. We all get to choose which words we accept, which narratives we let define us, and I chose to stop accepting limitations that other people put on me. I chose to define myself. The auditorium was completely silent. Maya could see people wiping their eyes, including her mom, who was full-on crying now. So here's my challenge to everyone graduating today, and to everyone listening. Stop letting other people's words break you. Stop accepting their definitions of success. Find the thing your brain is naturally good at and run with it. Because the world needs people who think differently. We need artists and engineers and designers and architects whose brains see solutions that others miss. Maya felt her own eyes getting wet. We need people who were told they weren't good enough but decided to be great anyway. Not despite their differences, but because of them. She took a final breath. To my fellow graduates, congratulations. We made it, we proved them wrong. And more importantly, we proved ourselves right. The applause started before she finished walking off stage. It built into a standing ovation that lasted longer than her entire speech. Maya stood in the wings, overwhelmed as 2,000 people stood and clapped for the girl who'd almost believed she didn't belong in college at all. Backstage, people swarmed her. Faculty members, fellow students, strangers who wanted to shake her hand or share their own stories of struggle and triumph. But Maya was looking for 3 people, she,